Leaving the pilot house, the couple made their way out along the narrow walkway to the stairs. They paused on the lower deck, and their two shadows merged as one as she leaned back against his chest. Together they admired the idyllic scene of silver-plated river and frothy white path stretching out behind. "She's beautiful, Ashton," she murmured softly. "So are you, my love," he whispered in her ear. She turned within the circle of his arms and tenderly caressed the strong, manly line of his jaw. "I can hardly believe we're married. It seems like only yesterday I was resolving to be a spinster." Ashton chuckled as he found humor in her statement. "Wasn't it only yesterday?" Her soft laughter joined his as she shrugged. "Well, it must have been at least a month or so ago." She raised her arms, laying them around his neck, and pressed the length of her body against his. "Do you always sweep a lady off her feet in such haste?" "Only when a lady captures my heart as fiercely as you have done." He peered down at her with a questioning brow raised. "Any regrets for not waiting for your father's approval?" "None," she assured him fervently, before she returned an inquiry to him. "And you? Are you sorry you're no longer a bachelor?" "My darling Lierin," he sighed as his lips lowered to hers. "I never knew what living was until you came into my life." From somewhere below, a sudden soft pop made Ashton pause and lift his head to listen. The sound was followed by a loud clank and then a louder bang. A shattering screech began and grew in volume until the couple's ears fairly ached. A billowing cloud of steam, roiling up from the boilers, engulfed the rear of the River Witch, and slowly the paddle wheel shuddered to a stop. The once graceful boat became an ungainly raft as she lost way and began to swing broadside to the current. Shouts of alarm came from below, and in the pilot house the captain snatched for the whistle lanyard, only to be rewarded with a bellicose wheeze as the last of the steam pressure faded. He snatched for the bell chain and kept yanking it to broadcast a warning to all who could hear. The large mass of floating debris drifted nearer, and though it seemed impossible, took on more of a rectangle shape. It slammed into the side of the sternwheeler with enough force to send a shudder through it. Almost immediately, a swarm of men sprang from the piles of brush that had been used to disguise the now discernible barge and threw out grappling hooks to snare the wounded River Witch. "Pirates!" Ashton shouted the single dreaded word. Almost immediately a shot rang out, and a sound like an angry bee whizzed past his ear. He ducked, pulling his wife down with him, and barked out several more warnings to the crew as the brigands leaped across to the lower deck of the steamer. Brandishing various weapons, they sprinted along the gallery toward the stairs and climbed to the upper decks. Other shots began to swell as passengers and crew alike realized their peril and snatched whatever weapons they could lay hold of. The decks erupted in bedlam as the 30 or more river pirates scrambled to engage them, and there were bellows of challenge and rage as fighting broke out on every quarter. Ashton tore off his dark coat and threw it over his wife's shoulders, making her pale-hued gown less of a target. Crouching low, they began to work their way toward the stairs. More shots zinged past, and he pressed her against the outer wall of a cabin as he shielded her body with his own. The sound of running feet drew Ashton's attention to the deck behind him, and he spun about to meet the vicious charge of a knife-wielding brigand. With a startled scream, Lierin stumbled across to the railing as the force of the man's attack drove Ashton back against the wall. A frantic struggle ensued as the pirate tried to bury his blade in his opponent's flesh. Similar battles had spread throughout the River Witch while the captain and helmsman struggled to regain some control of their clumsy vessel. The bow scraped across a bar they had previously passed, and the boat tilted to port as the currents lifted her up and over. She struck the main shoal and lurched hard to starboard, sending those in the pilot house ricocheting off the walls of its narrow confines. The helmsman fell, blood streaming from a wound in his head, while the captain sank to his knees in stunned confusion. The violence of the starboard lurch flung Lierin over the railing and far out into the black night. Her scream dwindled as she fell, and it ended abruptly in a loud splash. The sound cauterized Ashton's mind, and fear gave him the strength of a raging bull. Throwing off his assailant, he